I'm going to turn it right over to Mike Weaver.
Wonderful. So tonight on the agenda, the first thing that we have is the May 2026 financial report. Happy to say that it was an uneventful month, other than one or two short caveats that we'll talk about in 1 second. Ken, if you can just pull them up, if not, I have them. Great. So you'll see this is the package for the month ending May 2026. For the general fund, we had 18.2 million in expenditures, slightly higher than last year because it included some additional spending for the in comparison to the prior year. May, I said there were a couple of caveats. Um, May, it was one of the months, if you remember, I've been saying there's usually 2 months out of the year. May was one of the months that had 3 full pay periods. So you'll notice as we go through the individual sheets following that the salary expense is a little bit higher. And just as a reminder, of the 2 months that have 3 payrolls, only one of those months do we take uh, three deduction the three deductions. So for benefits, one month we just have two deductions. Year to date, as I said before, we're at 137.9 million. We have additional 29.8 million encumbered. And against the $172 million budget, that leaves us with a balance of 4.3 or about 2.5%. And not to take the fun away from when we reconvene and go over the final June numbers, but that number did come down today. We're floating at about 1.5%, I want to say. And then this is as the year progresses, even though we're kind of at the end, there are additional things that are being encumbered. Um, in uh, in June, that's not necessarily the case. We're encumbering a very small amount. Most of the purchase orders are already in, and the approval process for purchase orders is very minimal now. It's only on an extreme as needed basis, and the only way that we're putting them through is if we have a guarantee that we'll get them before the year end, so we don't wind up with that gap at the audit period for 26, where we have to then move expenses into the new year. So that thankfully is a thing of the past. Benefits, you'll see benefits and salaries are still favorable. One of the additional items I wanted to point out is a while back we were on an annual basis for pharmacy rebates. Halfway through this year, they decided to move us to a quarterly basis. So we received one in March, and my question to Gallagher was, is that the end? And the reason I asked is because what I didn't want to happen was for us to be in June and they say, surprise, here's another rebate. And then we have to scurry to get rid of that money. And that was the impression that we were under. And then about 9 days ago, I received an email from Gallagher saying, great news, you're getting your pharmacy rebate in a few days of $369,000. So that I did take that up with them. That was a surprise, but we've been spending very responsibly this year, so it didn't impact the financials too much, and the number in relative terms was kind of small. Ken, if you want to just scroll down to the to that summary page. So this is the summary page, just speaking what I said before. The month-to-date actuals, we came in at a little over 18 million for the total year budget of 172 million. Another 29, we'll call it 30 million encumbered. So we have a balance of 4.2, or that 2.5%. And then we have our usual notes and disclaimers down below. Pause there just in case we have any questions so far. If not, we can move on down to the line items. So again, here, the first few pages are our 51,000 accounts. These are our salary accounts. That's good, Ken. Um, and then right down on the following page, on page 3, you'll see they'll continue on with the sum. And then you'll see that under the month-to-date actuals, where we sum the salaries, you'll see that 11.5 million, and that's higher than it usually is because of those 3 payrolls. Again, there is a favorable balance there in the end of May of 6.8, we'll call it $6.9 million. And in a similar manner for benefits, we're favorable just about 13 with that additional $370,000 pharmacy rebate. So going forward for the pharmacy rebate, it will be quarterly, so we will receive them quarterly. We have a good idea of where the pharmacy rebate will be, and we're going to get advance notice more than 9 days when we get it. So we'll be able to record that properly, and then again take out those placeholders that payroll runs and book the actuals as we've been doing on a monthly basis. Underneath that, we have our professional services. And Ken, you could just keep scrolling down. These are legal fees, tutors, property services. A lot of that is the portion for rentals, repairs, technology maintenance, and our maintenance contracts and refuse removal. We are slightly unfavorable there, but we'll be receiving a check from 2 of our programs that will help offset that negative balance. It's not going to swing the numbers much, a few thousand. And then following that, we have our other purchase services where our transportation and tuition sit. Again, we had that tuition sped combined with the VOAG and the tuition sped for the public and the out-of-district magnet together. Although there's a slight offset, we are about $1.2 million unfavorable there. And again, that's due to just rising increases and also additional placements that we didn't know when we made the budget in the prior year. And then you can scroll down a little bit, Ken. Our supplies budget, which for a while was running favorable, and I said that a lot of our supplies are ordered toward the end of the year. It's still practice for a lot of our sites to wait until the end of the year to buy supplies. But we fell, for the most part, we fell within our budget. We did try to pre-buy some of those custodial supplies. So you see that's slightly unfavorable. And then the enrollment impact and equipment is our 57,000s. And that's where, again, our one-time spending is. We have a majority of that in building improvements and general equipment. And then if you scroll down to the last section, should be our 58s. And then the 58,000 series, which is really driven here by instructional improvements. You'll see that negative 1.7, which is driving essentially all of the variance for a total of $4.2 million favorable, or that 2.5%. We could scroll down a little bit more. And these, again, this is it by month. I know it gets a little bit small as the the year moves on, but you'll be able to see month by month. This is a pretty good way to represent the 3 payrolls against the 2. So if you scroll down a little bit more to see the sum of the salaries right there, you'll see that usually we're in that $7 to $8 million range throughout the year. And then in May, you'll see it jumps up to 11.5. Any questions so far? Like I said, it was a very uneventful month, which is good good for us. And then scroll down, you'll see the total. One more, I think it's one more page. There we go. And then you'll see our $18 million for the month of May. Again, slightly higher, but driven mostly by that 3rd payroll. Okay. And then the next section, we have our lovely grants report. I believe I mentioned it once before, but just as a reminder, we had our grants administrator who had been with us for a while, and we created another position as a senior accountant to try to do a lot of the, I'll call it blocking and tackling that wasn't being done in prior years. And we backfilled her position with another person from the district, Pollyanna, and Pollyanna comes to us from Ann Mead's group. Very talented. She has extensive experience in banking as well as grants, so she was a very natural fit. And she also knows Tyler quite well. Um, so this, like I said before, and I say it again, if you want to see any changes on the grants report, although I think the one that we're looking at here from Angela, I think she does did a great job putting this together. But if we want to see any changes in how this is laid out or any other details, we can definitely work that in.
Sorry, I was muted. Any questions from any board members? No? Okay.
Okay. So back to the agenda, I believe the next item we have is a 2025 audit update. So this is just an update to tell you where we are with the fiscal year audit. We are still working through the audit. Most of the initial preliminary work was done a while ago. We just submitted our last submission for the state single audit. I'm sure the auditors will come back with questions. We also submitted just about everything for the federal single audit, to which they kicked just about every single one back with additional questions. It seems that this year, the sample sizes that they're asking for, so when they ask for a sample of payroll, in previous years it might have been 20 or 30. We got one the other day for 60. And to go through the various screens and reports that they want for each person is quite a bit. As you know, we've been working with CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, together with the city to try to help us with these audits. So last week we called in one of the CLA accountants to come and help us pull all this data. It's at the requests, looking at the size of them would make it so that the regular work would be put to the side. So we called them in for some additional help. We're looking forward. We had a meeting today. We're looking forward to wrapping the federal single audit up, and then we just have a few pieces on the field work. Dan Garrig and I from the city worked today to finish up some of that work. It looks like we're gonna still be on time. I don't have an exact time that will be done, an exact date, but we're at the tail end of the audit so far. Nothing too out of the ordinary. But by the time we meet again, the audit will be over. But it is moving along satisfactory.
Great. Any questions on the audit? No?
Okay.
No?
The last item we have on our agenda. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Somebody-
I just wanted to make a comment about the audit and the team and just how intense the last, year or two has been on that. And, the focus and the acceleration and the partnership with the city has been great. But the work that, the team, the finance team has had to kind of come together and endure over the last, couple of years here. It's been tremendous. We're looking forward to being caught up and being back on track. And I just want to thank Mike for all the work that he's done with that, because it's been a pretty steady, accelerated cadence of work. So just I want to say thank you, Mike.
Yep. Pleasure.
Yeah.
The third and last item we have on the agenda is the 26-27 exempt salaries. Kara, feel free to jump in at any time here. Last year, it was around this time where we presented this. I kept the same format that we used last year. It
Do you
seemed to
have that,
work.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here. If I can see, here we are.
So in the budget, over the course of the year, when we presented the budget and the budget closed, we had landed on approximately 3.5% across the board. And so that's a bucket of funds that we work with. And in that, we take cabinet, non-cabinet, OT, PT, BCBA, and an entire list of folks, and then we go through and apply a percentage. Some of those members across the board who may have arrived here early in the year would not have get the full 3.5%, whereas others who were here across the year would have. We have a couple of accelerations where some market adjustments. So, for example, we had an employee that was hired just a couple months after we did a kind of a market adjustment when the hits on the job was not anywhere near we needed it to be. So there was a slight adjustment. And so we adjusted our employees across the board who were hired shortly after so that there was not discord amongst the ranks of pay for the same exact job. The only other one that was a bigger adjustment, and again, we have some slight adjustments in there for market adjustments, but the biggest one is comes with our assistant finance director. Mike, do you have that at all?
I have, yeah, I have the detail behind
Yep.
it. I'm not sure if,
Yeah, and I would just move the names off to the side, please,
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
not. Right. But we did have one of our assistant technology director. That was a bit more of a market adjustment in the sense that if we had to post the position, we've turned that position over 2 times already. And it's an in-demand position. There's a very high level of technical skill that's required. And in our district alone, we have just upgraded, I don't know, at least 6 or 7 elementary schools, a very complicated network and wiring project. And then post cybersecurity attack that we've had have now almost a 24/7 surveillance maintenance system. So if there are things or threats that flag in our system, those things are monitored on the weekend, they're monitored at night, and then there's an expectation for a response in that. And so with that in mind, we did an adjustment. That salary was around, I believe it was around 115, and we did bump that up to 125. The market rate is around 145, so we're still not there, but it was also a way to retain the person that's in that role. Now it was 110. Thank you. So that one, see that 14% jumps the average up quite significantly. But still we're under given the fact that we've made incremental adjustments based on when people were hired.
Some people, as we do this, we pull the list out of Tyler. We'll notice that some positions or people fall off, other ones get added on. Usually it's the case under the exempt salary. The BCBAs are relatively flat. I think there was only one change I had to make.
You could click on that one. And so we tried to keep those salaries, the BCBA. Mike, if you want to click on that as well.
Yep. Did it go through?
Nope.
The BCBAs?
Oh, no, I am on it. Sorry, I was focused on another tab. And so we keep those relatively the same. It's on those are like professional services. So, in the future, I think as a group, we should, I think we need a deeper market rate analysis to the same depth and level that we've done with some other groups. Those of these folks here, they're not in the teacher's contract, for instance. And so they don't get a percentage plus a step, if you will. So that's something that maybe down the road, I think we should look at to just remain competitive and to continue to reduce the number of agencies and services that we utilize for these positions.
And I just take those 2 tabs and I sum them up on the summary just so we could see.
So some are higher, some are lower, some they're adjusted based on the when folks started, and then some slight 1% differentials on market rate, and then there was the two overall bigger ones were that I keep calling assistant finance director, sorry, assistant technology director. And then we had one position that was outside of the market rate adjustment, who we accelerated for just a little bit more than that. So that the same position, everyone in the same position hired within a few months of each other were even. Still under the 3.5 cap. So.
Any questions from my board members on these?
Quick question, please, through the chair.
Yep, go ahead, Kate.
This is sort of like a more general question. In looking at the overall compensation, I certainly appreciate the call for a deeper dive to assess what the market situation is. I'm also thinking about how many folks there are out in the sphere that we can touch that fill these kinds of positions, to sort of better understand, I guess, the value of the employees that we currently have, right? And to understand, sort of how that might also impact future
Agreed.
salaries.
Agreed. And thank you for bringing that up. You could do a quick Google search and find a salary of a similar title. And I think, what needs to be done, and those are easy things to do. And particularly with AI, you can pull these things across. But they need to be compared up against the size of a district, right? So for example, I'll use the technology as an example because we just talked about it. You're talking about, there are assistant technology directors in other schools that have, 4 or 5, maybe 6 buildings to deal with. We are 19 school sites, more than 20 building sites, and there's a responsibility across the entire city is vast, and to maintain and try to maintain status quo is incredible. So when you look at a salary and a title, it doesn't always tell the story of the workload behind it and the expectation. Same is true for caseloads of students, of the teachers that we have, or the BCBAs and our special services. Same is true for for most positions. Danbury is the 7th largest city in Connecticut. So, we have a lot of buildings, it's complex. So not all things are equal. And so that's, it's hard to do on a cursory search. You can, where we've had pain points, we already know the market has already told us that you're not competitive. So those we're able to make easier adjustments, but it would be, probably prudent to, in some key positions, to make sure that that we're maintaining that, because when you only have one person that holds a position across the system and they walk out, that institutional knowledge goes with them. And so, we want to make sure that we maintain stability in the system is extraordinarily important, particularly in ours. This was a prudent, approach, and the way that it was applied, and we came under cap. So.
Great. Any other questions from board members or committee members? I don't see any. I'm scrolling through. Okay. If we have no other questions, I need 2 motions. I need one motion to accept the financial report, and then we're going to need a motion to accept the exempt salaries.
I'll make a motion to accept the May financial report and recommend to the board for full board for approval.
Motion made by Kate. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
And now I need a motion to accept the exempt salaries. Kate, do you think you could?
I will make a motion to accept the proposed exempt salaries and recommend their approval to the full board as well.
Motion made by Kate. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded made by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No. Okay. All right. Motion passes. Anything else anybody wants to discuss on those before we go? Questions, comments, concerns? So a short meeting, uneventful tonight.
If I may.
Go ahead, Kate.
I just want to follow up, Mike. I know we had received, I think, a preliminary list of one-time expenses during that spend down period, and I'm just wondering if we have any update on that.
Yes, we do. It's, I will repost that, republish that. It changes quite a bit. So by the time I redid it last time and went to send it out, it was already stale. So
Changing.
I
Thank
think
you.
now that we're done, I'll repost that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, this is our last finance committee meeting for the school year. So our next one will be in September, where we'll go over the year-end information. So guess we'll say motion to adjourn until then. Motion made by Sherry. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second and made by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.